witches. In theory, I love them, but when I read witchy books, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that witches have to say spells, which is the point of witches, I know. But I have a really hard time in books reading about it. I think I much prefer when people have powers and they don't need to say stuff to have the powers or doing spells and stuff like that. But I want to love witches. It's not something I'm like, oh no, I hate witches, I never want to read about them. I really want to like witches, so that's why I'm doing this vlog. In the video I'm gonna read different witchy books, mostly witchy romances or like witch light books. I haven't set a TBR because I'm a mood reader, so I don't want to put pressure on myself and tell you about books and then not reading them. But yeah, I'm gonna try to read witch books, and we'll see if I just give up totally on the subject or if sometimes I can find a hidden gem. The first book I'm gonna read is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. It's the pretty sprayed edges from Waterstones that I got in London in my comic book shopping with me. So yeah, I read 50 pages, which is like 3 chapters, and in this book we follow Belladonna, who's a witch. It's set in London, in our world, and she has powers, but the humans don't know that witches exist. And so Belle works at a bookshop, and in this book, when you're 30, you have to pass some trials to be sure you are worthy of having the powers, because in this witch society, you get your powers when you're 15, so when you're 30, you've lived half your life without powers and half your life with powers. So the society needs to know if you're worthy of the powers or not, because powers is not infinite in this world. So if you're not worthy, they take your powers back, you get powerless, and then the powers you had before goes to somebody else when they turn 15. Like I said, I read 50 pages of the book, and Belle only received the letter to tell her that her trials happens tomorrow, which is also the day of her birthday. And she didn't know that trials were gonna happen, and she used very sparingly her powers. So she works at a bookshop, and sometimes she used spell to clean the bookshelves. And at her place, for example, she brewed her tea with spells, and so the mug comes back to her without her having to move from the couch, stuff like that. So very minimal use of her magic. And now she's like, oh yeah, maybe I'm gonna lose my power, maybe I'm not worthy because I haven't used it that much. I think there's gonna be some human conflict and some witchy conflict. So for example, the human's conflict is gonna be with the owners of the bookshop son, which is a businessman, but he's not, and he's already pissing me off a lot. So I think it's gonna be a conflict, and I also think that the witch conflict is gonna be just about powers. So yeah, for the moment, I feel like the writing is very easy to read, very quick to read, so I'm enjoying this aspect. But I also think I'm gonna maybe have a problem with the main character, because I feel like she doesn't have a strong enough personality for me. And I have this problem in books, but also in real life, where people just complain and don't want to change certain situation, but just continue to complain about it. But at some point I'm like, you have the power to change stuff in the situation, you choose just not to, so stop complaining. You chose at some point. I'm saying that when you have the power to change. When you don't have the power to change, you can complain. But when you have the power to change certain situation and you choose not to, at some point it becomes your fault. Yeah, that's my opinion. And I feel like she's like that with the bookstore, because the owner offered multiple times to sell the bookstore to Belle, but she decides not to because, oh no, what if I'm not cut up for it? Girl, you're the main manager. It's not gonna affect anything of your work. You'll still have the same amount of work, you'll just be the owner. But now, since she doesn't want to own the bookstore, she has to deal with the owner's son, and she complains about the son. And I'm like, at some point, you chose not to change anything. You have the power to buy the bookstore, you have the power to be free of him, and you decide not to. At some point, you just have to accept that you choose to not do anything and just quiet. So yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion or not, but I'm like this in real life and in the books. So yeah, I think it could become a problem at some point, but at the moment it's okay. it's just okay at the moment. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment, and I'll talk to you later when I read a bit more. I've now read 50% of the book, and I fear that what I dislike in Witch's story is happening in this story. So like I said in the last clip, Belle has to go through some trials because she turns 30, and it's been 15 years since she has received her magic. And it's not a spoiler, but she fails the trials. It's not a spoiler because otherwise there wouldn't be a story. So yeah, she fails her trials, and oh my god, there's a loophole, a very, very specific and very weak loophole. I'm like, so stupid. And that means that even though she failed her trials, she doesn't lose her magic yet. She has 1 month to get better, to get some mentorship, to use her power better. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment in the book. And the problem I have is, I think with all the characters, each character is like a caricature or a stereotype of another character. For example, her mother, who is also a witch, is there for her, for Belle, but then we only have scenes where she's on the phone with her. And if her mother is like a representation for ADHD, very offensive. So I hope it's not even ADHD coded. There's also the coven, who does the trial, and there's 2 heads of the coven, 2 sisters, and one is black, one is white. Not the skin, but like personality. So the first one is very straight-laced, severe, and she doesn't want to talk. She's like da, 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 da. The other one is very like, oh my love, are you okay, blah blah blah. No nuance to anything. So yeah. It's I think it's not gonna be the book that makes me like Witch's story. At the moment we don't have any romance, which I think is a good thing, but I think it's gonna be a bad thing at the end because I know that there's a romance, a very small romance in the book, but since I'm halfway through and nothing happened, and not like maybe 2 interactions happened between the 2 characters. So yeah, since the romance is gonna happen at least at the end of the book, I know it's gonna be disappointing. I know it's gonna be very watered down relationship. So for the moment it's okay that there's no romance, but I think my tone will change at the end of the book. So yeah, I was hoping I would like something about it, but not really. Even the writing at the beginning, I really liked the easiness of it, I'm gonna say. But now I feel it's very repetitive, and yeah, I don't have anything more to say, and I'll talk to you when I finish it. I finished the book. I actually finished it like a few days ago, but I didn't want to pick the camera because I didn't want to talk about it. Because, like I expected, this book doesn't convince me to love books about witches. The end of the story was very predictable. Like I said in the last clip, a lot of characters felt like stereotypes or caricature of themselves. And that was the case until the end. For example, at the end we have like a mustache twirling villain, and I'm like, wow, very original. With a long monologue with, oh yeah, I did this, I did that. Okay. And the romance was very lackluster. like expected. And I'm even gonna say that the main character was a bitch to her love interest. She talked to him every time he tried to help her. She was like, no, I don't need you, I don't need you. And she made him leave the room or even the building so many times. And he keeps coming back. I'm like, dude, come on. Respect a little bit yourself, please. And yeah, even at some point, the main character, like I talked in the first clip, she's 30. And at some point she says, oh yeah, I'm an innocent teenager of 30 years old. And I'm like, oh, that's cringy, that's very millennial. And I'm like, ooh. So yeah, at the beginning I didn't have any problems with the writing, but the more I read it, the more I felt like it lacked something. There was a lot of telling instead of showing. So for example, in the story, the main character and her best friend have had a fight, and instead of living through the awkwardness of them two because they live together and they had a fight, she tells, oh yeah, we did this, we did that, we did this. And I felt like we needed a little bit more of scenes explaining or instead showing instead of telling. So yeah, if you want an example of books explaining why I don't like witches, this is the one. So I hope my next pick will be better. I don't know yet what I will read, but I'll see you in the next clip. I've decided for my next read, I'm gonna pick up Rising Divine by Lana Harper. I'm like 60 pages into the story. It's like four chapters. In this book, if you follow Dasha, who eats devil, it's like a step further from exorcism. So she exorcises demons, but she doesn't want them to come back, so she eats them, which is not a pleasant experience, but that's her power, that's what she does. And she lives in a town where there's like 4 different witch families, and I forgot to say, this one is a witchy romance, so yeah. So in this town you have 4 different witchy families, and she is part of one of them. And this year they're doing like a celebration about the funding of the town, and Dasha's ex is a part of another family. So the romance is going to be a second chance romance. In the Ivy, we just met her, like in the last chapter, we just briefly saw her. So we don't know yet what happened, but with what Dasha said, I think it's going to be her fault. She did something to break up the relationship and now she regrets it. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. 60 pages in. The only thing I noticed is that the writing is very lyrical. There are a lot of description, of comparison to this, to that. It's a bit difficult for me to get into the story with all this type of writing, but yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. And I'll see you, I think, again at the halfway mark of the book. It's the same day, but it's after work, so that's why I'm in my comfy clothes. But I've now read 50% of the book, so it reads quickly. And I feel like I didn't give a good synopsis before, but also I didn't really have any information to give you, so now I have some more. So, like I said in the last clip, in the town, they're doing like a celebration for the founding of the town with the 4 families of witches. And Dasha is part of one, and Ivy is also part of one. And I said it's a second chance romance, but it's not the case. It's a third chance romance. And the thing I think I don't really like is the fact that they broke off quite recently. So they were together for like 7 months. They broke off for like at least a month. Then they got back together for 3 months, and then they broke up again. And to me, if it happened in a contemporary setting, I would feel like it's a toxic relationship, because why do you break up so much? But I give the benefit of the doubt, since it's like a paranormal setting. So yeah, I'm like 50% into the story, and the celebration is happening. And since it's about witches, the witches do a kind of shows. Each family does a show, But the humans don't really know that magic is real, and they do shows and tricks that could be explained with like fireworks, shadows, strings hanging from the ceiling. But during the celebration, we see that something dark is happening, like a demon wants to connect with the human world. So, for example, birds during a show start attacking each other instead of just flying. And during another show, which was like a shadow show, a big shadow comes to life and he becomes like a demon, but a really big one. And I don't know why, but the author just kept repeating that he had a huge package between his legs, and I'm like, okay. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. Like, we feel a dark presence in the town, and they don't really know why at the moment. Dasha, the main character, went to the other side, like beyond the veil, and talked with the huge demon, but she doesn't have any clue of why he wants to bring darkness into the world. And about the relationship, at the moment nothing happened, besides Dasha asking for the third time if they could get back together, and Ivy said no. So yeah, nothing new happened on that point. And I think my biggest problem is, like I said in my last clip, it's a very lyrical prose, and I feel like I can't really connect with the characters with that type of writing, especially with the romance, because everything is telling instead of showing or slash feeling. So I'm not feeling connected to the romance, and when it will happen, I will be like, okay, it's just a romance. But concerning the witch aspect of the book, I much prefer this story than the last one, like the Rewitched, because it's more paranormal and less in a contemporary setting, and it's less about spells and Latin words you have to learn, and more about what you're able to do just with your mind. So I much prefer this kind of witch world, I'm gonna say. So yeah, I'll talk to you when I finish the book. I finished the book and I read it in like 24 hours, but I feel like I don't have a lot to say about the story of what happened in the book, because everything was just so quick. So for example, I think the story takes place in only like maximum a week. So it's a very short time to have a story and a romance. And speaking of the romance, there wasn't any build up to it, because like I said in the last clip, it's like a third chance romance. But the day before, the Ivy says, "Oh, I don't want to get back together with you," and the day after, they sleep together, and they don't really talk about how they feel or what they want for the relationship. They just sleep together, and then they say that they love each other. And I'm like, okay, only in a few days. So, yeah, the romance was really non-existent, because we didn't, yeah, like I said, we didn't build up to the romance. We didn't feel any tension. We didn't feel any passion or desire, nothing like that. So yeah, the romance was kind of lacking. And for the witch aspect, I didn't hate I just feel neutral about the witch aspect, actually. Feel neutral, don't feel any good thing or bad thing, so that's a good thing, not feeling anything bad compared to Rewitched. But when I searched the reviews on Goodreads, I learned that this one was the 5th book in the series, and I think it's the last one of the series, but I won't read any previous book of the series because I'm not interested in any of the books, and the rating is not that good. So yeah, I read the book, didn't feel anything bad toward witches in this one, so that's a positive. But yeah, I'll see you in the next clip and we'll see what I read. So for my next and final read, I've been doing some thinking, because since the first 2 books I've read have not been that great, I want to find at least a book I like, not even love, I just want to find a book I just like. And so I've been doing some thinking, and I realized when it's in a full fantasy setting, I'm much more inclined to like a story with witches. The first two that come to mind and that I really liked, I know the first one is a bit of an unpopular opinion, I think, but it's Separated Dove by Shelby Maherin. I liked and I reread the first one, but we don't talk about the rest of the trilogy because they were pretty bad. But the first one I really liked. And more recently, I finished reading the Crimson Moth duology by Christian Ciccarelli. And the second one, if you've seen my book haul from last week, the second book of the series is gonna be one of my favorite books of the year. So I realize in some cases witches, I really like books about witches, but these two books makes me think that I really like the trope of witch hunter and witches. So I won't read any more books in this kind of tropes, but I decided to read Wooing the Witch Queen by Stephanie Burgis. So it's about a witch. She has a kingdom and her parents were killed by her uncle, and now she took back her powers in the kingdom, her place in the kingdom, in the castle. During the time that her uncle was had the power, she was a prisoner in the castle. So now she has the power back. The uncle is not dead and he's causing problems, especially with the kingdom next to hers, which is ruled by the I have a hard time saying it, which is ruled by the Archduke Felix. And Felix is the other main character in this romance. Actually, Felix is a widow and is the Archduke, but he doesn't have any political power, because it's his father-in-law and brother-in-law who has all the powers, and they do wars with a lot of people, with a lot of kingdoms around them, especially when the kingdoms have powers. So that's where Saskia comes into the story, because she has power, she has a kingdom, and Felix, father-in-law, wants to have Saskia's castle and wants to put back her uncle on the throne. Where we at in the story, Felix was at a play and he learned that Saskia managed to push back some troops of his father-in-law, and now he's like, since I'm a puppet in their games and I don't have any political powers, and he's like, maybe if I make an alliance with her, maybe that would help in the grand scheme of things. So he decides to escape from his own kingdom and goes to her castle. But when he arrives at her castle, she mistakes him and she thinks that he's a dark wizard who's there to organize her library, but he doesn't have any power. And also, when he was there, since he was mistaken for someone else, they were talking openly in front of him about the Archduke Felix, and he's like, oh, they want to kill me, they want to find me, they want to kill me, they want to end the war. And so yeah, that's where we're at the moment. He's gonna organize her library. She doesn't know that he's the guy that she's looking for to kill. And so he knows who she is. And the writing at the moment makes me think about Assistant to the Villain, like the type of writing and the type of narration. It's not like comedy, but I don't know, it feels like a dark fairy tale, but with some light in it. I don't know how to explain it. So at the moment, I'm really enjoying it, and at the moment, I like who they are as characters. So she's very Black Cat, he's very Golden Retriever. So yeah, I'm excited to see where the story goes, and I'll talk to you where I'm at 50% of the story, like the other two books. So see you then. I've now read 50% of the book. I'm actually a little bit more, but oh well. I'm just gonna review the first 50%. And I have to say, the first thing is it has taken me so long to read the first 50%, and it's not that long of a book. I think it's a little bit more than 300 pages, I don't remember. Yeah, it's taking me a few days, where usually a book around 350 pages, I can read it either in a day or in 2 days. And this one is taking me so long, and I don't know why. In my last clip, I talked about the fact that the narration style made me think of the Assistant to the Villain. And now I have to say it has quite changed. I feel like the kind of cheeky writing, I'm gonna say, I don't know how to describe it, but the tongue-in-cheek writing and the way the characters think is less like fairy tale like and less like comedy. And I also have to say that in the last 50%, not a lot happened. It's still quite cool setting, and it's very cozy. You would think that in the kind of like enemies between the two characters, even if one doesn't know that she has an enemy in her house, you would think that there will be a little bit more tension, but no, it's still sweet and still cozy. So yeah, not a lot happened, and for example, Saskia, the queen, was tasked to plan a ball to have like allies in the other kingdoms, and I thought it would be a big event, and I thought it would bring like we would see all the preparation and all the organization of the party. Nothing here like that. And also, even during the party, we didn't really see a lot. So yeah, not a lot has happened. I think I've also forgot to say in the last clip that Saskia is part of like a trio of queens. I think this series is gonna be a planned trilogy, and each book is gonna follow one of the queen. So Saskia is one of them, and I have to say that one of the other is not a good person. She does actions towards Felix that are very creepy, and it's borderline non-consenting and very pressuring. And I don't know how the author is gonna redeem her actions. I think we're supposed to think that, haha, it's funny. It's not funny. But yeah, at the moment I'm like, I don't really like this character. And I remember that when I was researching this book, I looked up one review, and the review was like, oh, I hate this queen in particular. And I was like, oh, what did she do? And now I understand, and I have the same opinion. She is not a very good character, and I don't know how she's gonna be redeemed in her romance. So we'll see about that. I also forgot to say that Saskia is a bisexual character. Her first minister is an ex-Hovers, and the first minister is a woman also. And so yeah, they are both ex. But also, again, the first minister is very jealous of any relationship that Saskia could have had with Felix, or with, at some point, the first minister suspects that Saskia has a relationship with another of the two other queens. So yeah, I like the two main characters. They're very sweet, even if Saskia is the black cat and Felix is the golden retriever. I really like both of the characters, but I don't like a lot of other characters. But in the castle, there's an aspect of found family, because Saskia doesn't have any blood relations anymore, because they were killed, or she has her uncle, but she wants him to be killed. But she has like a servant who's an orc, she has a housekeeper, she has a cook, and she has also other creatures who helps her manage the castle. And this is very a fun family aspect, and it's also very sweet. But yeah, that's where I'm at 50%. And I'll talk to you when I finish the book. I finished the book, and honestly, I don't have a lot more to say about it. I liked the story overall. I liked the two main characters. The only thing I would say about it, that it doesn't really help to know if I like witches, because there's not a lot of witchy thing happening in this story. So the queen is a witch, but even when they say spells, they don't say them. And to be honest, it's one of my favorite things when to me, anything that's like poem, songs, or spells written in a book, I find it so cringe. So every time I see, like, for example, if one of the main characters is a singer and they write a song, I will not read the song. I find it so cringe. And that's also the case for spells. So for example, that's why I don't like the spells in Bewitched. Rewitched? I don't remember the name. I have it on the floor right here. I don't want to check. But I don't like reading spells. I find them so cringy. And in this one, yeah, they say spells, but you don't read them. So that's a good thing. But also, that means I didn't really read a witch book, but it's okay. Maybe that's for the better. So I'm reading my notes right now. What I've written is, so yeah, not a lot of witch, very sweet characters. I talked in the last clip about the witch, not the witch, another queen that made me really uncomfortable. With the end of the story, she didn't change, and she's gonna be in the next book, and I'm probably not gonna read it, except if, like, all the reviews are saying, oh, she has a redemption arc, but the last scene that sets up the next book, I'm like, oh my god, she's on top of being, like, creepy, she's very infuriating in the way she talks. To describe her, I would say, like, if you're in a group of people and you notice that one person wants to be heard and that she talks over everybody else, and yeah, that's the kind of person, of character she is, on top of being creepy, so I'm probably not gonna read the book. I also forgot to say that the queen has, like, crows companions, and one of the crow gets attached to Felix, and that was quite sweet because the crows were, like, kind of her eyes and ears. They didn't really bring back messages to her, but for example, if Felix or the queen were in danger, the crows were alerting each other and alert the other characters, so it was quite fun to see crows companions. There was also, I think, 1 or 2 sex scenes, and if you don't like reading sex scenes, you can totally read this book because it's there, but it's not at all described, so you don't hear any... The member of each character is not named, I'm gonna say. For example, at some point she's on her knees. You can guess what she's doing on her knees to Felix, but nothing is described. You understand what she's doing because it's, like, implicitly explained, but it's not explicitly explained. So you can read it and don't feel like... It's very glossed over. I think it was only, like, maybe a page and a half. So it's not long at all, it's not described a lot, so this was quite enjoyable because sometimes you don't need to read sex in every book. I feel like I talk about that a lot in my videos. I'm just in the point in my life where I'm like, yeah, I've read already this kind of scene, yeah, I know about it. So now when I see something a little bit different, I enjoy it. And also the different thing I was talking about in the first clip when I was talking about the narration style, unfortunately, it didn't keep up all the way through the story. There was, like, a few phrases at the end of the book where, like, oh, that was, like, at the beginning, but I feel like the whimsical or fairy tale-like and humoristic narration at the beginning of the story didn't last until the end of the story. But it's a bit disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. And finally, again, a thing I talked about in my last clip about the font family aspect. It's really there because at the end, or maybe more, a little bit after the middle of the story, they have, like, their version of Christmas and they gift each other gifts, and it was quite sweet because every gift was thoughtful, and you can really feel the font family aspect of it all with different creatures, so it was quite nice to see. And I don't know if it's categorized like that on Goodreads or in the marketing, but I would categorize it as a bit of a cozy fantasy-esque. Like, it's adjacent to cozy fantasy because there's a bit of, like, political aspect, but to me it's still a very cozy story. So yeah, I still enjoy the book. Like I said, I will not read the second one, but I'm excited to read the third one because the third queen is a lesbian, so it's always nice to read sapphic romances, especially in a fantasy setting. So I'm excited for this one. But yeah, I enjoy this one. And with this wrap up, that concludes the video, that concludes the reading vlog about witches. If I have to rank them, so the first one would be Wooing the Witch Queen, and between the two of them, to be honest, to me they are at the same level of enjoyment, which is not a lot, but I feel like I was more frustrated and angry at the story in this one than at this one, so maybe, yeah, like Wooing the Witch Queen, Rising Divine, and just below it, Rewitched. So yeah, I think this vlog, instead of convincing me to enjoy witchy books, it like helped me to see what I don't like in witchy books. So I think I'm gonna stop trying to read witchy books set in like our world, in contemporary setting, especially if it's not paranormal and just like there's some witches. I'm like, no, thank you. Maybe I'll try some paranormal-esque books again about witches, but I think I can continue reading fantasy books about witches. How many times can I say books and witches? But yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you in the next one. Bye!